I'm Francesca Rudkin and welcome to another Rialto Channel podcast. Today we're talking about the film The Pretend One. It's a heartwarming Aussie tale about a young female farmer whose imaginary friend of the last 20 years only realises he is in love with her when she starts to fall for a real man. Unable to face losing her, he must fight to become real himself. The Pretend One is screening on Rialto Channel on Friday, May 15th at 8:30pm, and it's got a couple of New Zealand actors in it, Michael Wally and also Benedict Wall. And Benedict joins me now. Benedict, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm great, thanks very much.
How has lockdown been for you? I know that you seem to work all over the place. Where have you been for the COVID-19 lockdown?
Well, I've actually been lucky enough to be in New Zealand because I just got married in February, and my wife Jessica works on Westside, the New Zealand production. So we were over here, and then we weren't able to go home. So we've been in Kingsland, for the last 7 weeks.
And have you made bread? Got abs? You probably already have abs. Started a new hobby, or?
I have been doing a few workouts on the deck. I struck up a punching bag and been trying to keep fit, going for long walks every day. And Jess has been doing lots of work. She's a director as well, so she's been doing some stuff. I've been helping her, and my mum's here as well, so we've been looking after her because she's in the vulnerable bracket.
Oh, good on you! Oh, nice. So you've been making the most of it.
Yeah, no, it's been strangely relaxing at times when it hasn't been terrifying.
Good to hear. Hey, now tell us a little bit about how you got the role of Guy in this gorgeous film that you're a part of, The Pretend One. Tell me about how you managed to score the role of Guy.
Well, it was an interesting situation. Michael, who plays Hugo in the film, he and I were flagging together at the time, and he actually got the script and was reading it, and I just sort of cheekily asked if there was anything in there for me. And he said, actually, there's a character that would suit you really well. And that was still about 2 years before the production came together, because it was a long sort of lead up. And in the meantime, the writer of the film was directing his first feature and offered me a role in that. And I wanted the role in The Pretend One so much, I jumped on the lower budget one first and did that and kind of, got to know all the guys involved. And then later on was offered the role of Guy.
Tell me about the scene where the farmers are asked to describe their ideal woman, and this is something that you're asking them to do. Tell me about these locals. Were they actual actors or locals? Because they're pretty priceless.
Yeah, so we were in this town that was in the middle of nowhere. So we were a good hour and a half to 2 hours from there on the cotton farm that we were filming on, and we came into this small town, which, it's just a rugby club and a couple of buildings and a pub, essentially. And so you have guys coming in from all around the outback. And so they'd had a copy of the script sitting on the bar for the last few months. So they'd all read it. And when we shot in the pub, we never closed it. So most of those guys were sitting around drinking all afternoon. So a lot of, I had a scene that's slightly off topic, but I had a scene where I'm sort of waiting for Charlie to come out of the bathroom, and it's a big emotional scene, and I sort of got my head in my hands, and I look up, and there's a guy sitting opposite me trying to play music on the jukebox, and totally off his face, wasted, saying, "Oh, you're the only good one here. Oh, you're the only one who'll look at me." I'm like, "I can't not look at you. You're directly in my eye line." So there's a fight scene. You'll see a little fight scene that builds out onto the road, and those guys didn't realise that they weren't supposed to really hit each other. So on the first take, they all bust each other up. They were a bunch of brothers from out country. So there was a lot of stuff like that. It was really peculiar, but quite fun. And as far as those farmers, I wasn't actually asking them the questions. The director had them on camera, and he was in there with them, and we were sitting at the bar watching them from the other side. But they were priceless. They did really great performances.
Oh, no, they did. So you play, of course, Guy, the character that heads into this small rural town and catches the eye of Charlie. And, of course, Charlie has her imaginary friend, Hugo. And,
right.
And so Hugo's played by Michael Wally. And tell me, how distracting is it being in a scene with someone who is pivotal part of the scene, but you actually have to pretend they're not there.
Well, this is the thing. Mike and I, like I said before, we were flatting together at the time. We moved out. I think we had our own flats by then, but we'd been really close friends for years, and worked together a number of times. And we both best man at each other's weddings, but we're best friends. And so he knows how to push my buttons. So to have him, it was next to impossible. So it took a lot of focus to try and not get distracted. But luckily I had Geraldine Hakewell, who was playing Charlie, and she's a wonderful actress, so if I just stayed focused on her, it seemed to work out.
Because there were times you were watching it and you could just see how much fun Michael was having with Hugo, and I did think, oh, this is tough. This is tough on you guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was. Because he was, he's making up a different line every time as well. So you never knew quite what was going to pop out of his mouth. I mean, the outtakes are probably longer than the film, to be honest. But we did manage to fight our way through, and he's a really generous performer as well. So I think occasionally, if it was getting to me, he'd back off a little bit.
So the shoot was about 3.5 weeks. Is that right?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
And who would have thought that Queensland cotton would make for such a visually stunning film?
Yeah, look, I had no idea. I'd never been out to that part of the country before. I'd been out back before, but never to one of the cotton farms. It really is a gorgeous place. You go for runs around it. You're supposed to take a stick because there were dingoes, and we lived on the farm the whole time in these dungas, which are just like miners' cottages. Those were the best accommodation. Like a lot of the cast, like the director slept in a house that had burnt down. And then about a few months earlier, the farmer, who was one of the producers on the film, said it had him sleeping in there, and there were people in little sort of tents down by the river, and yeah, it was a pretty beautiful place.
So you mentioned that you've been in New Zealand. Your wife is working here at the moment. Do you pretty much find yourself going back and forward between New Zealand and Australia and further afield?
Yeah, I do. I mean, most recently, so I've just finished a series in Aussie called Operation Buffalo, which is made by Peter Duncan, who made Rake, and that shot there. But right before that, I was in New Zealand shooting a film called Shadow in the Clouds with Roseanne Liang. So I'm kind of jumping between New Zealand and Australia, about half a year on each side, although we're based in Sydney.
I did want to ask you about the film that you shot with Roseanne Liang, and I don't know what you can say about it, but I'm very excited to see what she's going to produce for us.
It's bonkers. It's a pretty amazing piece. Most of the film takes place in a B-17 or B-40. I can't remember the name of the plane now. It's been a year, so I've forgotten. But we're in a bomber, essentially, during the Second World War. So there was a whole fuselage built. It's a really interesting piece of cinema, and I think it's going to surprise people.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because I'm talking to you about a film which I know was released last year and is now screening on Rialto Channel this year. But I think you filmed it probably 3 years ago. Roseanne's film was Roseanne's film was a year ago and things. It's quite wonderful though that these films, that your work and films in general just have this ongoing life.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's the thing. I think you film the movie and you put all your heart and energy into it, and then you move on, and then it comes back and you get to sort of revisit the relationships with the cast and with the director and with all the friends you made, during that process. Especially a film like The Pretend One, which is so intimate with only sort of 5 cast, and we all put a lot into it. And it was it was 5 years ago, it was earlier in all our careers, and you really bond, especially when you live on set together, when there's nothing to do and there's no internet and there's no phone, there's just a place to go swimming and play guitars around a bonfire. And I think you get that from The Pretend One, that real intimacy, because it was like that for us. It was, at the time, I think it was, the most fun I'd ever had on set. And it was, really a story that tries to say something about sort of loneliness and love and friendship. It's a really beautiful picture.
I was saying to Michael, the thing that I loved about it was that in a way it was a love story, but also it was a breakup story.
Yes, definitely.
You know, and it was a beautiful mix. Very special. Do you find that some characters in some projects do stay with you for longer? I'm sure you're fond of characters in films and TV shows for different reasons. But, you know, what was so special about, you just sort of mentioned the shooting. Was there anything about Guy that was special to you?
Yeah, well, Guy's a very sweet kind of character. And that was nice because I haven't been spending the last little while playing less sweet characters. And the nice thing about him, I think, is that he's a journalist, and when he comes to that small town, he sees something in Charlie, and I think a lot of it is to do with that connection that she's got with Michael, you know, because it all comes from that sort of loneliness. And so his kind of observance I found really nice. Like, he's always observing, he's non-judgmental, and he tries desperately hard to be open in all situations, and that was a really nice thing to play with, because he's a character that doesn't worry about being vulnerable. It doesn't bother him. Was
it a bit of a relief, Benedict, to be given a nice, sweet character?
It was. Well,
I can do this. I can. You know.
It's funny at the time. Your career moves in these funny loops. So, like, at the time, it was the sort of thing I was playing more of. And then over the last sort of year and a half, I've been playing these kind of more devious characters in, like, the last three jobs up until Peter's job, where it's a little more, you know, just a soldier thing, with Operation Buffalo is a little straighter. But the ones before that, they had a really dark edge. And so, it's nice to think back on it, actually. And I think I'm ready for something that's a little more nice guy in the next project, hopefully.
Oh, well, Benedict, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and Rialto Channel is really excited to be playing The Pretend One. Just a gorgeous film, so we're really excited to be playing it. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.